Elvis, a 20-year-old NEET, anticipates life's unpredictable nature. He admits the fact that he lacks grit no matter the task. His determination displays as he makes his decision, which is to slack off at home. However, this is short-lived when his sister, Lisa, slams the door open to confront her big brother. She gives him an earful and declares to cast him out of his home, leaving Elvis baffled. In the glorious empire of Grard resides the magnificent imperial capital. Various people thrive inside the vibrant city. The city has a great passion for learning with a focus on swordsmanship and martial arts. That said, the Adventurers and Commerce Guild are bursting with vitality. One can seek teaching specialized in countless disciplines and fields such as magical arts and pharmacology. Variety of transactions also take place. In the corner of the imperial city, Elvis' typical morning routine unfolds with his sister. She reiterates her demand to cast her brother out from his home. His carefree personality displays while telling his sister that he won't survive in the outside world if he is exiled. However, Lisa responds that his exile gets postponed if she is working. Elvis tries to reason out, but Lisa gives him a strained smile while telling him to think about it, overwhelming him with terror. He acknowledges that his sister's anger is completely justified. Elvis still finds himself lazing out home despite graduating from college after 2 years. Lisa decides to talk to him and mentions that his house's atmosphere is filled with complacency. After graduating from a prestigious academy, Elvis did self-reflection. Despite his efforts, he never landed anywhere and hoped his parents were still around to help him find a job. He understands why his sister is so furious. Elvis is deep in thought, recounting how he could get by in life despite his lack of drive. He was the type of kid who could do things without even trying. If only he could put in the effort, he could accomplish even more things. Despite the adults having high hopes for him, there has not been a time when he truly gave his all. His nature just does not allow him to push himself. Elvis accepts the fact that he was born a complete zero. He believes that struggling in life is unnecessary and hopes to just go with the flow. Elvis remains deep in his thoughts. He just does not see himself to be a salaryman who is expected to push hard in life, and just hearing the word overtime sends chills down his spine. His inability to be a team player at school, despite being an excellent student, causes him to step away from society. That said, he decides to avoid the grind and chooses to live the easy life. However, subtle shifts began to stir after 2 years of slacking off. His last shred of conscience begins to crumble. His sister launches a relentless pursuit which causes his sister to get mad at him. She pretends to be the opposite despite her strained smile. He feels guilty while recalling the fact that they shared a different mom and lived together for 16 years, which is enough years for him to tell that she is indeed angry. He admits that Lisa's personality is the complete opposite of his, which makes her the embodiment of seriousness and grit. Not only is she beautiful, Lisa is also a breadwinner after graduating from the academy and has been earning since. He continues to feel guilty and admits that he is intimidated by her. He tries to lighten up the situation and invites her to read a novel instead, which she obviously does not like. She gives him an earful and expresses how serious she is about her commitment to convince him to go out. She reminds him that he has been jobless for 2 years and it is time for him to get one. He responds that he just does not have that drive anymore. He believes that Lisa inherited their parents' determination, giving her the power over his fate. This makes Lisa hold the authority in their house. He sweats nervously when Lisa invites him to a calm and collected discussion. She reminds him that they have long passed the point where they can joke around his situation. Lisa pulls out a chair as Elvis sits nervously, filling the atmosphere with a deafening silence. She questions him if he is even aware of what he is doing. Her face turns ominous, while Elvis can't imagine himself to even try to step into society. He is in disbelief that his well-meaning actions would turn his little sister into such a monster. Elvis feels guilty that she is shouldering what should be his responsibility. He suddenly asks her to pause. With a serious expression, he tells her that he is ready to hustle, rendering her speechless. Lisa jumps from her seat in disbelief. She asks her if he is serious about his answer, to which he confirms that he is. She expresses his doubt about his answer, declaring that he has decided to dive into the workforce, which makes his NEET days numbered. Elvis wants to avoid causing troubles for Lisa. Tears well up in her eyes as she witnesses her brother turning over a new leaf. He is shocked to see his sister feeling emotional. He did not expect that Lisa was really worried about him. He then thinks about what job he should pursue, to which Lisa believes that he can do anything. She reminds him how everyone called him a prodigy when they were younger. He then remembers that he graduated at the top of his class without breaking a sweat, with a perfect score in aptitude tests and #1 in swordsmanship. Elvis tells his sister not to dwell on the past too much, finding it embarrassing to glorify his past accomplishments. He reflects on the saying, "School grades hold no water in the real world," finding it to be true. He shares that it is best not to measure job hunting by just skills or what you can do, which perplexes his sister. He reiterates that he is fundamentally against the idea of working, causing her to feel disappointed, but he insists that his belief is the result of a serious self-reflection. Her worried look displays, but Elvis insists on staying true to his feelings. He proudly accepts the fact that he is a total mess of a person. He shares that he is confident in his inability to stick with the idea of landing a job with a grueling 5-day workweek and endless overtime. He asks if that would just be a nuisance to the workplace, to which she agrees with. He notes that he is seriously considering a job after his determination not to work. He is deep in thought about all the things that work entails. He suddenly wonders if there is nowhere to actually work in the area, which he finds a disaster after deciding to get a job. Suddenly, Lisa calls her brother's attention. Her face lights up while telling her brother that she has the perfect job for him, raising his curiosity. She brings out a poster which says, "Adventurer Seeker Extraordinaire." He is left shocked as he carefully reads the keywords from the poster. He realizes that the job is being an adventurer, which sends chills down his spine. He becomes anxious while thinking about the fact that he excels in combat at school. Immersed in his thoughts, he tells himself that classwork and real battles are a whole different story. Lisa suddenly reminds him that she is self-employed, which gives her the freedom to work however she wants. Suddenly, Elvis reaches a point of realization. He becomes enticed by the money he can earn, which will help him kick back and relax once he's had enough, making him excited about the idea of getting a job. Suddenly, Lisa mentions that the clan in the poster is a major powerhouse, so many hopefuls are lining up, causing Elvis to lose hope. Lisa shakes him off and encourages him not to give up. She suddenly pauses after noticing his brother's reaction. He grins with confidence and agrees with her. Elvis believes that the clan will fight over him instead, and believes that it is a great practice for a NEET like him. He also thinks that Lisa will feel such a relief if he gets lucky and will have a bragging right. He is excited to make his comeback from being hopeless. He extends his hand to grab the poster, leaving everything to fate. Lisa carries a hopeful smile while he believes that sometimes one just needs to leap in despite the uncertainties, making him excited about the opportunities waiting to be discovered. He promises her that he will give it a shot the next day. He suddenly worries about his outfit, to which Lisa offers to get him new clothes. The siblings go out to a boutique for new outfits. The next day, he looks overwhelmed in the middle of the crowd while he prepares for the Fangs of the Black Dragon recruitment exam. He notices that everyone's eyes are gleaming with ambition, feeling that the atmosphere is just dripping with a cutthroat vibe. Suddenly, he feels out of place. The clerk shouts at everyone to get their application forms. She asks them to fill it out and submit it to the counter. Elvis starts filling out the application form as a 20-year-old male priest. Suddenly, he pauses and does not know what to put as his occupation. He is conflicted if he should put NEET as his occupation, which will only make his reputation take a nosedive. He finally reaches a decision and proceeds to the counter. The receptionist gleefully takes a look at his application form, only to be disappointed by his status as a NEET. She sympathizes with him for deciding to get a job after slacking off, which he agrees with. Her disappointment only intensifies. She encourages him to write down his profession as an adventurer, but Elvis responds that he has not worked a single day since he graduated. He is deep in thought while confirming his NEET status, leaving the receptionist in disbelief. She asks if he happens to be a former adventurer who now lives a life of a NEET. Elvis candidly confirms that he is just a plain NEET and never dabbled in the word of adventuring. He is rendered speechless when the clerk tells him that their guild does not hire inexperienced members. Internally, his eyes light up as he accepts his situation and decides to head back home. However, he anticipates his sister's reaction, so he decides to push himself a little harder. Elvis pushes back as the condition was not stated in the flyer, and it says that they provide training. The clerk grows anxious as she acknowledges that he is right. She tries to calm him down while he also points out that applicants with little experience are also welcome. He displays an ominous look while asking the clerk if. The clerk shivers in panic, while he feels guilty for putting her in a tough position. He feels pressured by his little sister and does not want to see her cry again. Suddenly, Phonic, the meteor blade of the Fang of the Black Dragon, arrives and asks if there is a problem. Elvis is clueless about his identity. The clerk seeks help from Phonic and lets him know about Elvis' demands. Phonic's eyes turn to Elvis, telling him that he can't join for his own good, which Elvis questions. Phonic carries a menacing grin, while swiftly making a move which renders Elvis speechless. Phonic intimidates Elvis with his sharp sword, while telling him that the exam is a rough game for him. Elvis will only get hurt if he is not ready. Phonic arrogantly tells him that if someone untrained insists, they will only end up dead. Elvis' nonchalant expression displays while he puts away Phonic's sword and tells him that he is ready to face the consequences. He adds that he has got nothing to lose anyway. Phonic carries a menacing smile, while acknowledging that he will not back down despite his warnings. He turns away while leaving everyone speechless. He adds another warning that reality is not a sweet treat, and people who dream big without putting in the effort are a sight that's hard to stomach. He turns around with an ominous expression while asking Elvis if he can still stay the same after witnessing his finely honed strike. Elvis looks tense after Phonic threatened him. The crowd cheers for Phonic and warns Elvis of what is to come. Silently, Elvis feels like he's going to be in deep trouble, thinking that he just crossed someone he shouldn't have. Phonic looks confident as he calls Elvis's attention. Phonic promises to showcase his swordsmanship to Elvis in return for coming all the way to the examination venue, prompting him to sweat profusely in nervousness. Phonic immediately charges at him without warning, slashing his sword that strikes faster than the blink of an eye. Phonic's ominous gaze displays before Elvis, who is rendered speechless. Time stops for Elvis as he sees everything in slow motion, recounting his swordsmanship class back in the academy. However, he acknowledges the fact that he is in an actual battleground at the moment. Based on the employment manual that he read, student and working professionals are held to completely different standards, not to mention that his opponent is a famous adventurer from the biggest clan in the guild. Elvis slowly loses hope and feels that there is no way he could stand a chance against him. Suddenly, a course has been activated. Phonic slashes his sword before Elvis, who stands steadily and calmly, leaving him unscathed. Phonic raises his head and notices something strange about Elvis. He does not see any signs of fear from Elvis and remains to be composed. Phonic mentions that he can't afford to injure bystanders, leaving the crowd baffled to see Elvis unscathed. Phonic turns away and mentions that he can't just take a wild guess if Elvis has seen through it all. He looks proud as he announces that he took the liberty of missing on purpose, leaving the crowd perplexed. They are amazed by Phonic for giving mercy to Elvis. Phonic carries a charming smile until he suddenly asks Elvis to confirm something. He asks if Elvis really chose not to move, curious about his response. Elvis looks detached and rides along with Phonic's gullibility. The swordsman looks relieved and convinced that Elvis's eyes were reacting to his sword, which leaves the crowd astonished. Phonic is amused and decides to let Elvis take the exam, announcing that he will personally take Elvis on in the swordsmanship test. With a menacing expression, he plans to determine whether Elvis's response was a skill or just luck. Phonic walks away from the crowd, leaving Elvis baffled. Elvis feels grateful and perceives the situation as a gentle nudge in his favor. The clerk hesitantly gives him his candidate number. Elvis looks determined and promises his sister to give it his all. Suddenly, the examiner calls for the candidates to prepare for the exam. Everyone starts lining up to the entrance. In the balcony, the clan master, named Offred, of the Black Dragon's Fang gives everyone an intimidating look. Elvis is astonished to see the legendary clan master. Offred thanks the candidates for joining the clan. He promises that they will find the ultimate pride and environment that the candidates desire. Offred confidently mentions that the name of the capital's mightiest clan is no empty boast, proudly acknowledging the presence of Lady Flair, who is the third princess of the Emperor Zoros. Elvis and the candidates are amazed by the distinguished guest. Lady Flair wishes to witness the moment when a chosen one will bear the future of the Black Dragon's Fang. Offred proudly asserts the grandeur of his clan, which is recognized by the royal family, prompting Elvis to react with wide-eyed amazement. Offred reassures that their clan welcomes those who demonstrate strength and talent. He expresses hope that everyone present can prove their worthiness and join their esteemed ranks. Elvis is still rendered speechless. All the atmosphere is buzzing and charged with anticipation as the crowd expresses their willingness to join the clan. Suddenly, Elvis feels overwhelmed by the electric atmosphere. He compares the vibe to a sports club that is pretty intense. Suddenly, the participants are instructed to group themselves according to their exam numbers. Everyone is instructed to check their exam tickets and proceed to their designated spots promptly, with Elvis holding a 378 exam number. They instruct them to hustle into the arena once their number is called. Meanwhile, Phonic is one of the clan members who will oversee Elvis's group. The latter is overwhelmed by how many candidates are there and wonders when his turn will arrive, as he is looking forward to going home. Suddenly, his worries fade in an instant when Phonic easily moves on to the next candidate, who is filled with anxiety and fear. Phonic slashes the candidate with his sword in a blink of an eye, immediately knocking him down. Elvis might return home sooner than he thought as the candidates are being dispatched swiftly. Elvis finds him worthy of his nickname, which is Meteor, and recognizes that difference in speed compared to the other adventurers. Elvis slowly accepts his fate, believing that he will also be done in a blink of an eye as well. He wonders if the outcome will be the same if he backs out now, but something tells him that it is too late for that. Elvis suddenly feels a jolt as his number is finally called. He starts to regret feeling too relaxed as he takes his weapon. Suddenly, Phonic calls him. With an ominous expression, he expresses that he has been waiting for this moment. Elvis notices that the blade is dull. However, he is determined to give it his all. Before they start, Phonic lets him in on a little secret. He reveals that the attack that he did was just in going easy on Elvis. He arrogantly tells Elvis that amateurs will not even notice what is hitting them once he goes full throttle. He adds that he held back a little bit so Elvis could see the reality. Phonic declares that he is going all out with everything he has got. Phonic notes that his sword has been dulled for the purpose of the exam, ensuring him that he will not take his life, but he can't avoid a little bruise. Elvis displays a nonchalant expression while requesting that Phonic goes easy on him. The fierce fight commences, while Elvis notes that the time has arrived. He closes his eyes and zeroes in. Elvis uses his eyesight to see through his enemy. He stands steadily as the attack strikes him, but Elvis effortlessly dodges Phonic's sword. Elvis's eyes widen after his successful attempt, while Phonic follows through with frantic attacks. However, Elvis effortlessly dodges every attack his enemy delivers, prompting Phonic to feel furious. He is in disbelief that Elvis simply dodges his attacks, which hurts his ego. The crowd are rendered speechless in the corner while Alfred observes the fight from his post. Elvis continues to dodge his enemy's attack, while Alfred displays an ominous expression mixed with curiosity. Phonic's fury intensifies as he tells Elvis to prepare for his next attack. He motions his signature move, while Elvis grins menacingly. Phonic uses his Meteor Slash, which is his fastest and ultimate technique, but Elvis remains unbothered while carrying a scheming smile. He prepares to finally strike an attack after dodging. Elvis successfully delivers a direct hit against Phonic, causing him disbelief. Elvis then pushes him away with additional force. Elvis remains a nonchalant expression as he takes a look at his enemy. Phonic involuntarily expels air out of their mouth in a violent burst, sending him crashing against the wall. Alfred watches the entire scene unfold, while Phonic is buried in rubble. The impact causes a massive crater on the wall, prompting surprise among the crowd. Elvis thanks Phonic and his relentless assault. He recounts the fierce blow that he showed him at the reception, and how he went easy on him. Suddenly, Elvis reaches a realization. His eyes light up and believes that Phonic still held back despite going all out to show his power. The crowd is astonished by Elvis's performance. He feels excited to let his sister know and wonders if his entrance to the clan is already guaranteed until the candidates are called for the magic exam. His celebration is cut short for another round after the combat test. He feels remorseful for entering himself to the magic test. He hopes that he just stuck to the combat test while the examiner tells them to prepare for the magic test. Elvis admits that he got greedy and hopes to snag at least one of the tests. Suddenly, something strikes his mind. He wonders if he can just throw in the towel on the magic test. However, he knows that it is impossible as he imagines how his sister would react. Suddenly, he notices that the next exam involves a magic arrow, which he immediately understands. The examiner tells him to hit the open target after completing the combat test. Elvis learns that the test allows them to only use 3 magic arrows, which he finds ridiculously basic. Elvis is unamused, prompting him to call the examiner. He questions how they can score the candidates if they just fire randomly without aim. The examiner explains that the target has a sensor that automatically calculates where they hit and the power behind it. Elvis also learns that he just needs to scan his exam ticket to a machine, and he is all set to take the test, finding it very convenient. However, something bothers him all of a sudden, prompting him to ask how durable the target is. He is remorseful when he recounts how shaky his control was, which caused him to smash the targets every time. The teacher gave him a perfect score and asked him to stay away from the targets. Knowing how expensive the measuring devices are, he acknowledges that he can't afford to cover the cost if it happens again now. Suddenly, he hears the examiner laughing, telling him not to worry about it. Looking at a voluptuous sorcerer in the corner, named Carmilla, the examiner reassures him that she has casted a powerful protective spell on the measuring devices. The examiner is confident that a run-of-the-mill adventure's magic couldn't even make a dent, which relieves Elvis. With a broad smile, he gets ready to unleash his full magical power. Elvis uses his magic arrow, causing a massive explosion at the exam venue. Elvis is at a loss for words, while the examiner is immensely perplexed. The target has completely vanished, shocking Elvis in the corner. The examiner screams in disbelief and calls for a pause. He panics and asks why the target shattered like glass if he only shot a magic arrow. Internally, Elvis fears that they will think he was not following instructions despite his efforts to clarify things beforehand. The examiner feels that the defensive spells are wearing thin. He then asks Elvis to test his magic arrow on the next target, which he obeys. Back at school, he thought his magic was simply strong, but doubt fills his head, fearing he will be labeled as someone who can't control his magic. He raises his hand and tries to carefully dial down his power. He focuses all his attention on controlling it and then fires his magic arrow again. However, he completely shatters the second target again, prompting the examiner to react in great disbelief, noting that there is no way a beginner should have such immense strength, which leaves Elvis in a pickle. Silently, he assumes he will not get any points for destroying the targets, while the examiner panics about the trouble he will face. He puts his palm on his face and instructs Elvis to head home already. However, Elvis insists he has not even fired his third shot yet. Suddenly, someone checks on the commotion and asks what the fuss is all about. Carmilla arrives with her charming presence, astonishing Elvis to see the mage who cast defensive spells up close. The examiner explains that Elvis shattered 2 targets with his magic arrows, putting him in an embarrassing situation. The examiner concludes that he has to call off his test, but Elvis insists that he has not fired his third shot yet. Carmilla observes the situation. She raises Elvis's face using her finger, asking if he is responsible for breaking her defensive magic. She carries a strained smile, sending chills down Elvis's and the examiner's spines. The examiner offers to take Elvis out of the venue, but the latter insists on taking his last shot. Carmilla intervenes and lets him have his third shot, leaving the examiner shocked. Carmilla offers another chance to Elvis, but she promises to take him on herself if the target shatters again, leaving the boys shocked. They worry that she might get hurt, which causes her to pause momentarily. Her aura shines, displaying confidence that implies she does not get hurt easily. Elvis is rendered speechless. She is confident that she will not get hurt in a million chances. She uses her defensive skill around herself, telling Elvis to strike whenever he is ready. Elvis displays his relief, removing himself from the chance of disqualification. Carmilla tells him not to hold back as she hurries him to take his final shot. Elvis feels the pressure of firing his third shot without harming Carmilla. She expresses her carefree attitude while Elvis remains humble. He focuses his energy as he tries to dial his magic down a notch, even lower than before. He hopes to release the minimum power possible. He closes his eyes, releasing his final magic arrow. Light emanates from him, while Carmilla's eyes widen in shock upon the impending magic arrow. Her powerful barrier breaks, causing Elvis's attack to strike her and leave her wounded. Shock fills his face, seeing Carmilla crashing against the wall from the impact, just like Phonic. Elvis shivers in fear and guilt, unable to harness the power that the examiners demanded. He panics as he assumes that he is going to be disqualified after blasting Carmilla away, just like what happened to Phonic. Carmilla winces in pain, while the examiner attends to her with urgency. She stands up with her burnt dress, calling Elvis, who is immensely scared. Carmilla displays an ominous expression while feeling impressed by Elvis, who is visibly frightened. He shivers in fear while apologizing to her. Carmilla is in disbelief that her defensive magic shattered so easily. She mentions that his power was just off the charts, leaving Elvis embarrassed. He just accepts the fact that he can't simply control his magic. He realizes that being mediocre is key in the adult world. Elvis hopes that his sister will still allow him to return home. Suddenly, Carmilla calls him, asking Elvis for his exam number. He shivers in fear as he gives it to her. Carmilla shames him for not being able to tame his magic, embarrassing him even more. He acknowledges that he ended up hurting his opponent due to his shortcoming. Elvis looks depressed, thinking that he would be rejected for his performance. Carmilla moves closer to him and brings up his application form, telling him that she will take her sweet time looking over it. This sends chills down his spine, noticing how furious he just made Carmilla. Even though he feels like Phonic gave him a nice push earlier, he understands that his situation is hopeless. He displays his respect and thanks the examiners. His depressed look is visible on his face. He finally walks away while thinking about what he will tell Lisa. He plans to tell her that he sent the examiners flying, knowing that it will only anger his sister. He understands that he is applying to a massive clan where getting in would be a stroke of luck. Elvis easily accepts his fate, while Carmilla carries a smile while looking at him. Elvis is deep in thought while walking through the street. Meanwhile, Phonic and Carmilla are in the same room, gathering at the selection committee room with the rest of the Black Dragon's Tooth. Phonic stands confidently while the crowd looks at him with astonishment. A clan member calls him and thanks him for his hard work. He mentions the recruitment test, highlighting the incident that was out of the ordinary. A clan member, who was a judge for years, finds the situation amusing. He adds that it used to be a straightforward selection process. He mentions the talk of the town, Elvis, who is candidate number 378. The clan member grins menacingly, thinking that Phonic made a miscalculation. However, Phonic denies it, noting that he was dead serious during the exam. The clan member acknowledges his answer until something catches his attention. Carmilla makes her grand entrance with a cast on her arm. She calls the clan member's attention, asking him to show Elvis's application form. She shares that she already cast a healing spell on her arm, but her injury is still a mess. Carmilla mentions that it is still a band-aid on a gaping wound, even with healing magic. She admits that it has been ages since she had an injury she could not recover from. Suddenly, she is rendered speechless while looking at Elvis's document. She is shocked to learn that Elvis is a NEET, a reaction that the examiners felt the first time. Phonic asks her in a serious tone what she thinks about Elvis. Carmilla responds that Elvis gets the job and will never let the opportunity slip from her hand. She hands over Elvis's document while asking Phonic if he agrees with her. A few days later, the result of the exam finally arrived. Elvis looks disappointed that his name is not even in the list of passers. He feels depressed while remembering how he blasted the examiners during the exams. He suddenly utters Phonic's name, acknowledging his influence on him. He feels like he was showing off during the exams. He decides to head home while feeling depressed. Suddenly, a cloaked individual asks if he could speak with him. He reveals his face, which turns out to be Phonic. Elvis mentions his name, but Phonic stops him so no one can hear. He reveals that he can't be seen chatting with him, which is a complicated situation. Phonic mentions that there is something important that he must convey. Suddenly, something strikes Elvis's mind. He feels like he was involved in cheating based on the series of actions that pushed him forward. He fears the repercussions for Phonic when it gets exposed. Suddenly, Phonic asks if he is not satisfied with the outcome of the examinees who passed. He apologizes to Elvis, remorseful that he could not protect him after all. Elvis is rendered speechless, seeing Phonic looking sad. Elvis is taken aback, while Phonic is about to reveal something to him. During the deliberation, Alfred disqualified Elvis, citing that it was due to cheating. Phonic expressed his objection, to which Alfred questioned his reaction. He asked Phonic if there was something that he was not satisfied with. Phonic paused momentarily, informing Alfred that he had a question. He asked him to elaborate Elvis's disqualification. Alfred mentioned how the rookie easily defeated the elite stars of the clan. With an ominous look, he asked Phonic if it was acceptable. The swordsman was rendered speechless after Alfred shared his thoughts. He also reminded him that the third princess was in attendance at the exam. In the presence of the royal family who had high regards for the clan, especially for the elite known as the 8 Stars, suffering such a disgraceful defeat was simply unacceptable for Alfred. That said, he conveyed to the third princess that there was treachery involved. Phonic felt regretful for wasting Elvis's talent due to Alfred's ego. He retaliated for becoming the one who stands in the way of Elvis's ascend. However, Alfred tapped his table as he made his response. He asked Phonic if he was ready to relinquish his place among the 8 stars, which rendered him speechless. Alfred mentioned that only the chosen 8 warriors of their clan were worthy to claim the throne of 8 stars. If he gave it his all and still faced defeat, he must be ready to pass it to the next. Phonic's shock displayed in his eyes. He was put in a predicament when Alfred made him choose to leave his position for Elvis. His statement sent chills down Phonic's spine, while Alfred displayed a menacing grin. He asked Phonic again if he really gave it his all and still lost. His hand shivered in fear while deciding that he still needed to stay in the clan. Presently, Phonic mentions that he can't share the details yet but reiterates how powerless he felt during the deliberation. However, Elvis tells him not to worry about it, and that his feelings are more than enough, leaving Phonic in immense shock. Elvis displays his humility and mentions that there are things that he needs to reflect on as well. Phonic is surprised and asks if he forgives their decision to disqualify him. Elvis carries a smile and confirms. He tells him that he would make the same decision if he was in his shoes. Phonic mentions that he is surprised that Elvis understands his position so well. Phonic tells him that he is full of mystery and hopes to meet him in a different circumstance, to which Elvis feels the same. The two shake hands and bid farewell to each other. Elvis silently utters Phonic's name, thinking that he apologized despite his own mistake and finds him too kind. Phonic looks forward to seeing him again and hopes that he tests his might, calling him a golden prodigy. Elvis feels a sense of relief and notes that Phonic was such an incredibly good person who gave him the push he needed. Not to mention he apologized despite failing the exam due to his inability to control his powers. Elvis feels that it is a windfall if luck truly favors him. However, he suddenly feels the dread of telling Lisa that he did not pass the entrance exam. He drags his feet on his way home, thinking that he needs to arrive before she gets back from work. Upon opening the door to brace himself, he suddenly sees his sister waiting at the entrance, giving him an immense shock. Lisa welcomes back his big brother, revealing that she took a break from work. He asks if she is feeling off, but she is completely fine. She expresses her excitement about his exam result and could not focus at work. Eldest shivers in fear, noting that he did not even have the time to brace himself. Lisa knows the answer already based on his reaction and offers him a snack instead. He asks her about his positive reaction. Lisa expresses his joy that his brother went to take the test and still gave it his all, leaving him shocked. He asks if she is sure, to which she confirms. She tells him that this is what happens when looking for a job. She is proud that her brother is moving forward already, rendering him speechless. He realizes that Ollie's took time off work just to be with him and was not worried about passing or failing the exam. He feels emotional and thanks his sister for staying by his side so he doesn't wallow in pity alone. She carries a warm smile while telling him that not getting the job was a blessing in disguise. With excitement in her face, she mentions that he just does not fit in the Black Dragon's fang. He feels disheartened after hearing it. She explains that it is super tough with tons of work since it's the biggest company around. She also mentions about the overtime and back-to-back shifts. He screams in fear while confronting her about pushing him to take the exam despite knowing the risk. She responds that everything is about the spirit of challenge and shares that she heard about it from her workmate. Something suddenly strikes Elvis's mind. He realizes that her job has ties to the Adventurers Guild. She tells him that he would have chickened out easily if he knew about it. He suddenly feels bad thinking that being an adventurer is not his calling. However, Lisa thinks otherwise. She reiterates that the Black Dragon's fang just doesn't seem to fit him. There is also a rumor about an impressive exam taker, this time without knowing that it was her own brother. She also mentions about the examiner taking down the legendary 8 stars. Elvis is shocked after learning about the rank of the examiners he took down. He is amused to learn that the examinees just had rotten luck and mentioned that he also took down Phonic. He thinks that Phonic is just an average guild member while Lisa continues to encourage him. He recounts that he always ended up at the top without ever having a real target at school. However, he acknowledges that there is someone out there way stronger than him. He suddenly pauses upon realizing how cool it is to stand shoulder to shoulder with the 8 stars. Lisa gives him an idea of becoming a freelance adventurer instead of joining a clan. He pauses for a moment after learning that it is complete personal responsibility, but the freedom is undeniable. He thinks about it since being in a clan means he needs to report to a boss, while a freelancer allows him to choose his tasks and workload. Suddenly, Lisa lunges at her brother. She hugs him with pride as she congratulates Elvis for stepping out of his neat lifestyle. Elvis's inner go-getter self starts to heat up a bit as he plans to register as a freelance adventurer. He suddenly feels bad after getting booted from home again by Lisa as he goes back to hustle after a week-long rest period. Elvis decides to visit the guild to apply as a freelance adventurer, trying to please Lisa to bring back her joy. Elvis is filled with fear just thinking about her sister's reaction. Suddenly, Lisa calls him out for lazing around for a whole week, making him get up from his bed. He humorously responds to her and makes an excuse that he is lacking the determination. Her ominous posture displays while he asks for extra time to recharge after giving it his all at the entrance exam. Suddenly, he experiences a frightening déjà vu after telling his sister to register for another day. She kicks him out of his house and tells him not to come back until he is done with the freelance adventurer paperwork. Suddenly, she remembers something and calls her brother, telling him that there is a place that she wants him to stop by before heading to the guild. Elvis displays his curiosity and asks where it is. Fast forward to him getting a new haircut. He comes out of the barber shop while noting that the refreshing vibe is so nostalgic for him. Lisa made a reservation for him so he can look presentable. While outside the streets, he doubts that anyone from the Black Dragon's Fang test site will recognize him. Although he acknowledges that he is already sticking out like a sore thumb due to what happened before, suddenly he remembers the elite's clothes. He looks at his outfit and notes that it is a cloth like a simple fabric. Conveniently, Elvis passes by a clothing store. Upon seeing a wardrobe, he decides to try them and immediately buy the entire set. With a completely different look, no one will ever suspect that he is the same person. Finally, Elvis arrives at his destination, marveling at the Adventurers Guild. He enters the establishment, which he describes as the backbone for adventurers that support their every endeavor. They broker jobs like monster hunts and escort missions, while also buying up valuable herbs and materials. He explains that everyone has a role to play within the organization in a clan, while the guild lets the adventurers roam freely. He realizes that the clan operates just like a company. Suddenly, the clerk greets him as he approaches. Elvis informs her politely that he wants to register as an adventurer. She displays her positive smile as he expresses his desire to join. She learns that it is his first time to sign in with a guild. Elvis suddenly feels overwhelmed after seeing the amount of information he needs to learn and fill out. She offers her help in case he has any questions, which Elvis appreciates. He sits in the corner, learning about the different adventurer ranks. He also learns that the difficulty of the quests increases as he climbs up these ranks. Elvis is surprised that he is not starting with rank F. All he needs to do is complete a simple quest and pay the registration fee so he can become an official adventurer. Looking at the fee that he needs to pay, rendering him speechless. The fee is too shocking for someone who is currently unemployed and has no income like him. His eagerness to join the guild turns into a nightmare as he is asked to pay 50,000 gold to register. His eyes nearly popped out after seeing the registration fee. He is left with no choice and wonders what Lisa thinks about the registration fee. While he fills out the form, he notices that it is similar to what he filled out at the Fang of the Black Dragon, emphasizing the occupation section. He is determined to write down his role as an adventurer like a warrior or a mage. He thinks that he is a jack of all trades and feels like he needs to consult the clerk about this. He also notices the pledge form that comes with the documents, stating that he should not complain even if he dies. He acknowledges the complete accountability from start to finish. Despite the terms and conditions, Elvis decides to fill out the form until he finishes it. Suddenly, the clerk notices something. Elvis approaches her as he seeks for advice. He shares that he is torn on what profession to pursue. She asks him if he has a knack for swordsmanship or perhaps flair for magic. He candidly shares how outstanding his skills were since he was at the academy, astonishing the clerk. He also mentions that he only dabbled in both. She reassures him that there is no need to worry at all, mentioning that the guild welcomes anyone with open arms as long as he agrees with the terms of the contract, to which he already did. She suggests that he can start as a warrior, which he can change later on. Elvis appears pensive as he reaches his final decision. Suddenly, an adventurer intervenes and mocks him that he can't even think of a single skill he is good at. He insinuates that he is not worthy to be called a warrior. The menacing adventurer who reeks of booze confronts him. He calls Elvis a half-baked wannabe with a sword and magic, exclaiming that he is nothing but a hindrance to their quest. Elvis is taken aback as the menacing adventurer tells him to just go home and look for a regular job. Elvis's expression hardens into a stern gaze. However, he stands his ground and refuses his demand. He insists that the path of an adventurer is his only destiny now, which is the only job he is cut out for. The menacing adventurer calls him a brat for talking back, threatening to give him a lesson with violence. The clerk tries to de-escalate the situation, but the menacing adventurer commands her to keep quiet. She shivers in fear, while Elvis stands calmly, recognizing that he is being harassed randomly by an adventurer who is prepared to give him a few scrapes and bruises. He points his dirty finger at Elvis and assumes that he will just turn a blind eye when it matters most during a quest. But Elvis thinks that he worries about him instead. The menacing adventurer decides to teach him the mindset of an adventurer. Suddenly, Elvis raises his hand to stop him and calmly invites him into a duel. This leaves the clerk baffled and causes a commotion inside the guild. The atmosphere inside the building intensifies as they both agree to settle their argument. However, the clerk panics as she informs him that he is facing an intermediate-level adventurer. Elvis realizes that the menacing adventurer is either ranked B, C, or D. However, he remains unfazed by his rank. Elvis finds this as a good opportunity to measure his strength while the menacing adventurer expresses his excitement. The old man charges at him, but Elvis stands still as his opponent's fist is about to land on his face. Suddenly, Elvis blocks his attack with his arms, intensifying the emotions inside the guild. Elvis's eyes widen with intense focus. The menacing adventurer commends his great reflexes, while Elvis remains unscathed from his attack. The old man launches multiple punches while Elvis effortlessly dodges his strikes. The drunk adventurer mocks him that he can't even manage to scream. Elvis looks pensive while observing his enemy's attacks. He wonders if this is already the might of an intermediate adventurer. As the crowd cheers for the drunk adventurer, Elvis can't help but feel overwhelmed by his smell. He suddenly motions his hands and decides to test his own strength and give it his all. He prepares to strike back with impact, launching his first effortlessly against his enemy. The menacing adventurer's eyes almost pop out after Elvis's punch lands on his stomach, while he carries a nonchalant expression. The drunk adventurer drops to the ground, shocking the crowd in disbelief. Elvis pauses for a moment, perplexed by the outcome. He notices the clerk shivering in fear. The crowd is rendered speechless after a rookie takes out an intermediate adventurer, leaving Elvis to think that he messed up big time. The adventurer struggles in pain and shouts, asking who he is. Elvis responds with a nonchalant face that he is a probationary adventurer. The adventurer is furious after being defeated by a rookie. Elvis reiterates that he is just a rookie signing up as an adventurer. The defeated adventurer's peers laugh at him, prompting Elvis to react in confusion. The veteran tells his companion not to lose to a beginner. Elvis stands silently while the defeated adventurer explains that he just let his guard down. Elvis seems unimpressed by his lies, and decides to mock the defeated adventurer, which only pisses him off. His opponent grows angrier and warns Elvis not to get too arrogant. Elvis continues to fuel his opponent's fury, which only embarrasses him in front of his peers. He continues to mock him that he is turning red, but not due to the alcohol. Elvis suddenly looks away, asking the clerk to proceed with the preliminary registration talk. She whispers to confirm if he really is a newbie and inexperienced. He then asks the clerk if his preliminary registration is complete since the paperwork is done, to which she confirms. She instructs him to complete a simple quest to finalize his registration. He questions her how to get started, which leads her to suggest hunting down high ogres, prompting him to react with fear and uncertainty. He clarifies if he is referring to an elite monster that even eats people, to which she confirms. The clerk is confident that Elvis can handle it, despite the quest being perilous to seasoned adventurers. He frantically asks for a simpler quest and insists on avoiding elite monsters. He exclaims that he wants a quest that is fit for someone who is just starting out, prompting the clerk to feel disappointed. She suggests a herbal gathering, to which he immediately accepts. He proceeds to the Great Forest, which is popular for gathering herbs. The vast forest that is so close to the imperial city is home to a wide array of plants. The quest that he took is popular for beginners and very lucrative. However, he acknowledges that the success of the quest is contingent upon having a green thumb. Elvis is proud that he happens to be part of the gardening club at the academy. He carries a confident smile. He starts to collect the herbs and recognizes multiple medicinal plants before him. He thinks that any type of plant will do since there are no specific instructions about it. He suddenly sees a Karlsruhe, prompting him to remember the time when he carelessly yanked out a plant back in the academy. Elvis decides to be careful this time to make sure that the plant remains fresh when he sells them. He uses a magic spell to unleash a spell to concentrate the soil's nutrients. He fills the herb with nutrients to keep it bursting with freshness even when detached from the root. He then envelops the surface of the herb with a magical shield. Without the steps, the nutrients and water will simply vanish. He proceeds to store the herbs he gathered in the item box, which he commands to absorb the plant. He is surprised that he manages to snag the plants without any hitch. He decides to head back and sell the plants. Looking back at his quest, which is about gathering herbs, he proceeds to gather more since he has not finished his quest yet. Meanwhile, at the guild, an adventurer makes a dispute about his reward, but the clerk insists that the price they are offering him is fitting. Meanwhile, Elvis looks nervous while observing the commotion. The adventurer insists, but the clerk stands her ground since the quality of the items are poor. Elvis feels anxious about how cutthroat the reward system is at the guild. His fear grows since he knows that he just does not have the negotiation skills. The clerk exclaims that the adventurer can always refuse to sell, which causes him to cry. Elvis thinks that they have reached the end of the negotiation. The adventurer feels depressed in the corner, while the clerk gleefully welcomes the next customer. Elvis acknowledges her call, but he suddenly pauses for a moment. He feels nervous while giving one herb for now, to which she acknowledges that the item is a legendary plant. She appraises the item, causing her to react with surprise. He shivers in fear and thinks that there is something wrong with the appraisal. She mentions that the herb she is looking at is a Karlsruhe herb. She exclaims that the herb is top-notch and rare. Elvis shares that he gathered it from the vast forest, to which she questions how deep did he venture. Elvis responds that he did not venture that deep, which surprises her. She is in disbelief while Elvis mentions that the herbs are growing everywhere. She shares that the items brought for sale were mostly wilted. She mentions that proper herbs are scarce and promises to distribute them properly. He questions if herbs are really in short supply. She responds that herbs exist in the public market, but only low-quality ones are circulating. She adds that places trading with Black Dragon's Fang have high-quality herbs, prompting him to react with surprise. He clarifies if she is referring to the biggest clan in the city, to which she confirms. He questions why there is trade only in a specific area, prompting her to explain that the clan owns a private territory in the Great Forest. For some reason, high-quality medicinal herbs keep coming from there. The clerk notes that the area is just perfect but finds it too good to be true. He becomes curious as to why the herbs only grow in that specific area. Elvis finds it strange while the clerk notes that the guild strives to distribute medicinal herbs fairly since it is a public institution. However, the clan can deal directly with vendors, making the distribution of the herbs monopolized. He feels disappointed to learn what the clan is doing, although he is not surprised. The clerk expresses her joy and shares that the herb he provided will help them a lot. Elvis decides to lay out all the items he gathered for the day and hopes that there are some top-notch herbs in the mix. Suddenly, the clerk pauses for a moment, prompting Elvis to feel nervous again. She pauses in disbelief, exclaiming that the herbs he just provided are also top-notch. The adventurers are amazed to see many medicinal herbs in good quality. They ask if Elvis cultivated the herbs in bulk, to which he responds that he did not. Elvis shares that he just casually wandered around the vast forest, prompting them to react in disbelief. Elvis feels threatened by their reaction, insisting that he was just casually gathering herbs near the entrance of the vast forest. One adventurer is emotional as he shares that he almost encountered a monster while gathering herbs. The other is furious while telling him that he always stuck around the entrance but did not see anything. Elvis feels overwhelmed by their reaction. The adventurers threaten him to spill any secret spots he knows of. Suddenly, someone interrupts the commotion. The clerk calms them down and asks them not to force him to tell his secret recipe to success. Elvis thanks her for saving him, while the clerk tells him that she will process the reward. He suddenly freezes in disbelief when he overhears her that she is planning to double the standard purchase price. Elvis is rendered speechless, while the clerk asks if it is not enough. Elvis responds that it is more than enough, while the clerk gives him his reward. She presents him with shining coins, while the clerk encourages him to return. Elvis is over the moon that he can finally afford the 50,000 gold coins needed for the full adventurer registration. The clerk warns him about the giant lizards that are running rampant in the vast forest. He suddenly visualizes the threat. The clerk adds that various beginners encounter the monsters and asks him to be extra careful. She then leads him to the bulletin board where they post regular updates for his reference. Elvis thanks the clerk as he proceeds to the bulletin board where adventurers gather. Meanwhile, the dangerous lizard in question appears to be defeated with a sharp sword in the vast forest. Turns out that Phonic is in a subjugation quest to defeat the lizards. He reminds his team not to be careless since even weak monsters are still dangerous in large numbers. He suggests that any group with C rank or below must have at least 2 people to accompany them. Phonic wonders how many lizards have they taken down already, while his team can't help but feel amazed by him. The guards are talking loudly in the back about how strange the recent recruitment test where Phonic got blasted away. Phonic overhears them, which fuels his fury, and commands them to shut up. His ominous presence displays. He suddenly screams and looks for the Geo Dragon. He recounts how he lost the trust of Alfred as one of the 8 stars. In a flashback, Alfred noted that the sightings of the Geo Dragon were on the rise in the depths of the Grand Forest. Alfred asked him if he ever danced with dragons and lived to tell the tale. Phonic was shocked to hear about the Geo Dragon, a species that exceeds a colossal 20 meters in length. Alfred revealed that an urgent request from the guild has come for the clan. He wondered who they should assign the task to deal with a calamity-level behemoth that even S-rank adventurers find daunting. Alfred could not look for anyone fitting for the job other than Phonic. He asked if he has ever slain a dragon before, to which the elite swordsman responded that he did not. Alfred then asked if he was up for it, to which Phonic immediately accepted. He promises that he will rise to Alfred's expectations no matter what. He vows to regain his trust no matter what. Meanwhile, at the guild, the clerk is happy to see another exquisite quality item from Elvis, leaving him pleased by his reaction. The other adventurers start to feel impressed by him and describe him as someone with the hands of a deity. The clerk is over the moon that Elvis has been providing them with quality herbs for a month already. He is happy to hear that even vendors who never received any before are overflowing with gratitude. However, the clerk still finds it strange. She whispers to him and shares that many adventurers were inspired by him. She shares that people are gathering herbs from the same spot, but none are as high quality as his. Elvis acknowledges the presence of some adventurers tagging along with him whenever he would gather herbs. The clerk worries that his secret was about, but he reassures her that there is nothing as such. He tells her that he was just casually gathering herbs as usual. Adventurers follow him and head home after picking herbs nearby. He also confirms that the other adventurers are collecting from the same spot. The clerk still finds it a mystery, which Elvis agrees with. Silently, Elvis notes that one would naturally do nutrient replenishment and surface coating when gathering premium materials. He reiterates that it is a mystery, to which the clerk describes his hands as godly. She adds that his hands are flawless without a single scar. The clerk then asks him if he did not encounter any monsters after noticing that he hasn't seen him with any scratch. He confirms that he hasn't at the moment, which relieves the clerk. She exaggerates that it would be a disaster if something happens to his godly hands. Back to the vast forest, he notes that he casts monster-repelling spells on him, so low-level ones usually steer clear. Elvis realizes that he has not encountered the giant lizard despite his daily visit in the vast forest. He wonders if it was weaker than he imagined. Suddenly, something catches his attention. He sits in the corner and decides to call it a day. However, an impending danger arrives behind him, casting its shadow over him from its towering form. The giant lizard looms behind the dense forest, causing Elvis to freeze in fear after seeing its gigantic form. The monster chases after him while he runs for his life. He thought that the giant lizard was just 2 meters tall. Without its tail, it is at least 20 meters long. He regrets not checking the information provided in the bulletin board. The monster has breached Elvis's barrier and proceeds to go for the kill. He tries to talk to the monster and explain that he was only gathering herbs. In their world, monsters are alien entities who are spawned from a thick and toxic miasma. This explains why the monsters simply despise humans and see them as foes. Suddenly, the lizard growls loudly, causing Elvis to freeze. He recognizes that the lizard used a skill called Bind Voice, which paralyzes the target with terror, stripping them of their freedom. He lets out a guttural scream as he breaks free from the bind. Elvis immediately dodges the lizard's attack, feeling shocked by what monsters can pull off these days. Suddenly, he notices a twig which he uses as his weapon. He channels his energy into the wood, which shocks the lizard. Elvis slashes the monster's giant foot. His face is filled with confidence as he decides to fight back. He uses a spell that enchants the target with any desired effect. Elvis is confident with his skills that was enough to trip the giant monster. However, the lizard is still not yet ready to accept defeat. Suddenly, he realizes that he does not have enough with him since he only has his cloth armor and a wooden stick as his gear. However, he still puts up a fight using his magic to make his wooden stick razor sharp, delivering a powerful slash against the enemy. Elvis follows through with magical flair, causing a massive blast around the gigantic monster. He wonders if his strike was effective, only for the monster's expression to harden with a stern gaze. Suddenly, Elvis dodges the multiple and swift strikes from the lizard. He wonders if the lizard is unleashing its magic in full force. He is impressed by the lizard's ability to use magic, and trying to avoid its many attacks is a hassle for him. After dodging relentlessly, he uses his enchanting magic infusion. Elvis smashes his wooden stick, which blasts the ground. He is confident that his magic will work this time, until multiple magic circles appear below him, prompting him to reach with shock. The ground crumbles, but Elvis manages to dodge the attack as he jumps into the air. Upon looking down, he notices the lizard's mouth wide open, ready to devour him as he falls in the air. He feels insulted that the lizard thinks that he was foolish enough to fall for his trap. He smashes the monster using his wind burst. Elvis uses a sky ladder, letting him walk in the air. He imbues his magic with arcane enchantment as he prepares to deliver another razor-sharp strike against the lizard. However, the monster summons another multiple magic circles pointed towards Elvis. He manages to dodge every strike the lizard made. In an instant, Elvis delivers a critical strike against the monster. The lizard winces in pain after he damages his eye. Elvis continues delivering attacks against the monster. He points out that his moves are already sluggish. He smiles confidently, while calculating the trajectory of his next attack. The lizard and Elvis lock eyes, and then he uses his wind burst to lift the tree with him. The lizard struggles with the injury it sustained, while Elvis sharpens the tree he just lifted with him, using it to impale the lizard's head. Elvis looks at the monster with confidence. He sighs with relief, feeling impressed by how strong lizards have become these days. He then wonders about what he will do with the monster's carcass now that it is dead. He notes that their meat is tainted with miasma, which makes them inedible. Elvis hopes to craft gear from these materials, but his crafting skills are lagging behind. He contemplates the situation, realizing that he is left with a giant piece of junk. Suddenly, he carries a smile, while commanding the monster to return back to the earth and decompose. Elvis throws away his tools, but he feels disappointed after doing a completely pointless job that neither pays nor fills his belly. The emptiness that he feels is overwhelming, especially considering how hard he tried. He looks at the brighter side, which is getting a good combat practice since he knows that the lizard has been a menace to others. He decides to head back and sell the herbs that he collected for the day. Suddenly, Phonic arrives at the scene where the giant lizard that Elvis defeated lies. Turns out that the giant lizard was the geo-dragon that Phonic has been hunting, which leaves him baffled to see its lifeless form. He questions who was responsible for its death, while Carmilla arrives at the scene and confirms if it is really dead. She asks if he took it down himself, but he explains that it is already dead by the time he arrives. Phonic questions if she handled her task, to which she confirms. The two elites recognize the surge of the monster's number the past few years. Phonics notes that the appearance of the Geo-Dragon only makes sense since the forest's miasma has thickened to unprecedented levels. 3 years ago, a man named Vanyer took over as head of the Black Dragon Fang's herbal division after the previous leader's death. Since then, the once struggling herb-gathering division began to rake in profits almost as if in perfect synchronization. Meanwhile, in the forest, the miasma thickened, causing the quality of herbs to plummet. However, the quality of the herbs on the clan's private lands improved and untouched by the malevolent miasma. Phonic acknowledges that their clan has the monopoly of top-tier herbs. He admits that it is a delight to see their earnings skyrocket. However, something is bothering Phonic. That was why he decided to talk to Vanyer and hear his thoughts about the strange happenings in the vast forests these past few years. Vanyer looked at him ominously and asked if he wanted to hear his perspective or opinion. Phonic pointed out how convenient the situation was for their clan. Vanyer responded with ambiguity. He carried a menacing smile while telling him that he did not have the slightest clue, leaving him shocked by his response. Meanwhile, in the present, Carmilla can't help but feel astonished by the monster's gigantic form. Phonic admits that he can't lose focus now and must tackle the situation at hand. Carmilla notices the tree impaling the Geo-Dragon's body and thinks that it was the fatal blow, leaving Phonic and Carmilla baffled. She investigates further and notes that it is impossible that a tornado caused it to the monster. Phonic recognizes scars caused by a dual blade, but he wonders what are the weapons that were used exactly. Suddenly, his subordinate calls him urgently to look at something they saw. Phonic is surprised to see 2 wooden branches covered in blood. Phonic is shocked and pauses for a moment. He calls Carmilla and asks her if there is magic that can give wood the strength of a sword. Carmilla confirms that there is, as long as one chants the item to be tougher and sharper to resemble a sword. He makes a brief pause and mutters to himself, wondering if the wooden stake can pull off the same trick as a sword. Carmilla confirms that it can. Suddenly, her face is covered in immense shock, while Phonic's expression hardens with a stern gaze. Carmilla exclaims that it is a Herculean task to fortify the tree and use it as a dragon-slaying spear. Phonic looks at the dead Geo-Dragon. She pauses momentarily until something catches her attention. A massive crater on the ground lies nearby the scene. Carmilla is suddenly hit by a realization. She points out to the spot where the ground is completely gouged out. She surmises that someone unleashes a wind burst to send those fallen trees flying. She is convinced that someone uses a magic skill to sharpen the trees to pierce the giant monster. Phonic is shocked to hear her theory. Suddenly, Carmilla pauses momentarily, clarifying that all she said was only hypothetical. She mentions the intricate calculations required to launch the tree on the target with precision, not to mention the monster's tough scales. She suddenly feels down, which makes Phonic worry about her. She highlights that lifting a large piece of wood requires an enormous amount of magic. She suddenly backtracks on her words, which makes her hypothesis unrealistic. Carmilla confirms, but mentions that it is possible in theory, especially if someone is a master who devoted their entire life to the enhancement of magic enhancement. She acknowledges the extraordinary talent of the mysterious person and believes that they have the situation under control. However, Phonic disagrees with her, mentioning Eldas's candidate number. This puts Carmilla into a freeze. Phonic acknowledges that his talent is the real deal. However, they did not even get the chance to know him. Carmilla agrees with him, believing that there is a master of enchantment lurking around. Meanwhile, the vast forest's charming peculiarity is undergoing a curious transformation with the surge in monsters and the appearance of a mysterious powerhouse. Phonic anticipates something that is about to burst into motion. He grips his fist tightly and prepares to stay sharp and ready. Meanwhile, Elvis is surprised to hear that the Geo-Dragon was taken down. The clerk hands him his reward for the batch of herbs he provided. She also confirms the news he just heard, prompting him to freeze in shock. He lets out a guttural scream after realizing the gravity of the news without him knowing that he was responsible for it. The clerk explains that the sudden swarm of giant lizards is due to the forest's miasma growing unnaturally thick. Chills send down Eldas's spine as he still can't wrap around the appearance of a Geo-Dragon. He notes that taking down a giant lizard was already a hassle. What more, a dragon, still unaware that he just defeated one. He innocently questions who slayed the dragon, but the clerk obviously does not know. However, words on the street say that the fangs of the Black Dragon's Phonic was leading the strike team. Elvis is amazed and describes him as an incredible person, which the clerk agrees with. Elvis expresses his desire to be as strong as Phonic one day, while the clerk suggests that he starts with a giant lizard. He candidly shares that he just took down one, prompting the clerk to confirm his claim. Elvis confirms that he just defeated one. The clerk could not contain her excitement after learning of Elvis's success. She explains that a giant lizard is a formidable threat for a newbie adventurer. Suddenly, he wonders how terrifying the advanced monsters could be if a rookie like him finds the lizard's size intimidating. Suddenly, Elvis remembers something. He asks the clerk when he will graduate from being a provisional adventurer, leaving her baffled for a second. She is shocked that Elvis is still on the provisional list. She explains that the full registration for adventurers is a self-declaration process. Elvis is completely unaware, asking if he can do the process right now, to which the clerk confirms. She rushes to get something while telling him that his contribution level skyrocketed because of the herbs. He realizes that he should have asked sooner since he left right after selling the herbs. He feels relieved after thinking that the guild will figure it out eventually since he has lived on a passive side. She returns quickly with the documents, reminding that the registration fee is 50,000 gold coins and asks if he is ready to sign up immediately. He recounts how shocked he was after learning of the guild's registration fee, but thanks to harvesting the finest herbs, he can now afford it. He is confident as he confirms that he will register right now. His official registration finally wraps up. The clerk hands her his adventurer's card. His excitement causes his body to shiver while looking at his card. The clerk's gleaming smile displays as she congratulates Elvis. He pauses momentarily, trying to wrap his head around the fact that he is officially an adventurer. Elvis is more determined than ever to step into the world of work. Back to his house, he welcomes Lisa back with a confident posture, leaving his sister caught off guard. She asks him why he is standing like a sentinel at the entrance, wondering if her brother just got home as well. He tells her that there is something important that he needs to tell her, leaving her baffled. He confidently asks his sister out for a delicious dinner, rendering her speechless. In a luxurious restaurant, making Lisa very happy that his brother is treating her with his first paycheck. She notes that she did not see it coming at all. He turns serious while admitting how he made Lisa worry. She carries a strained smile while telling his brother that he does not even know the half of it, leaving him feeling guilty. He reveals that he finally got his registration sorted out, which freezes her for a moment. She calls his brother, while getting the menu and mentioning about the compensation for worrying her. She greedily tells him that he should double the amount of the compensation. He reassures her that he will pay up without a hitch. She calls the waiter while Elvis is confident that he has got plenty of funds to spare. She orders like there is no tomorrow, leaving him nervous about the amount of food she is getting. He suddenly grabs the menu, leaving his sister baffled. She carries a smile, while asking him if he is alright, to which he confirms that he is. She then looks over at her bag with an item inside it. Both she and her brother are excited about how the night will unfold. While eating their delicious meal, she asks if Elvis is really a warrior now. He explains that the guild suggested it since he doesn't really have a standout skill. She thinks that her brother is well versed in both sword and magic. She reminds him that he was even called a sword saint, which only embarrasses him. He explains that a mere student claiming to be a sword master is just plain embarrassing and insulting in the eyes of adults. He adds that one can never cling to the glory days of their school days forever. He puts the attention back to Lisa and expresses how proud he is of her. However, Lisa insists that he is the real star. She thanks him for the meal. Elvis is impressed that she really cleaned up his plate. He tells her to head home already, but Lisa calls him suddenly. She hands him a box, telling him that she has something to give him as well. She asks Elvis to take a seat, which surprises him. She tells him to open up the box with a serious tone. Elvis nervously opens the box, putting him in a shock after seeing what is inside. Turns out that Lisa gifts him with a dagger, asking her to explain the gift to him. She responds and calls the dagger a little beauty. She suddenly carries a cheerful smile while telling her brother that it is a little gift to celebrate his new job. Elvis is rendered speechless as Lisa expresses her amazement at her brother. He suddenly feels pressured since today is about returning the favor to his sister. She explains that she just wants to celebrate something wonderful that happens to their family, noting that this is just the way things should be. He is taken aback, softly thanking his sister. Suddenly, chills run down his spine at the thought that the dagger must have cost her a fortune. However, she tells him that it is bad manners to measure a gift by its price. She asks if he has any weapon, which he confirms. Lisa tells him that she wants him to have the dagger for his own protection. She softly expresses her desire to return to their home safe and sound. Elvis is taken aback, absorbing what his sister just said. He realizes the possibility of leaving his sister all alone in case he doesn't come back from his quest. He thanks Lisa, telling how much he will cherish her and her gift. She suddenly jumps from her seat and tells her brother to come home. He immediately looks at the bill to settle it, turning his excitement into depression. He sweats profusely in the corner while Lisa wonders about his strange reaction. She whispers to her brother and asks him if she should pitch in a bit. She tells him that she bought a little extra just in case. Suddenly he pauses for a bit, telling her that it is against the rules. Lisa is taken aback by her brother. She lets her brother settle the bill and thanks him instead. Meanwhile, he suddenly contemplates how the giant lizard could have been taken down way more easily. He is determined to earn with ease and make it back home safely. He admits that he is also over the moon about the dagger that he received from Lisa. The next day, he decides to prepare a lunchbox for Lisa, filling her with immense joy. Then a month later, he found himself kicked out from their house once more. She carries her usual strained smile, confronting her brother who is currently slacking off. He pauses Lisa to say something. He explains that he needs a well-deserved break for putting immense effort, but she responds with a serious tone. She informs him that regular adults only get 2 days off. Her ominous eyes display, pointing out that he has been lounging around for a whole month. He insists that he is a freelance adventurer and took jobs enough to earn the needed cash to rest for a whole month. She smiles and responds that he needs to stick to his original resolve. He is perplexed that his reasoning is denied by his sister. She sends him flying outside their house so he can go back to work. Feeling defeated, he acknowledges that he has no choice but to really work. He drags his feet as he prepares to go on a herb hunting adventure again. Meanwhile at the clan, Alfred calls for the Herbal Division's monthly report. Vanya reports that his department is thriving this month and that there are no issues in sight. Alfred acknowledges his report. He mentions high-quality herbs circulating beyond our usual distribution channels, asking Vanya if this could be a problem. Vanya pauses for a second, complimenting Alfred's knowledge about the situation. Vanya is certain that there are still no issues at all. Alfred pauses for a moment, while Phonic and Carmilla observe from their seats. Vanya adds that there was a time when things got a bit dicey, but he reassures Alfred that they are back to owning the market again. He suspects that a fortunate adventurer stumbled upon a lush grove of top-notch herb, and they have harvested it to the very last leaf. Alfred's expression hardens with a stern gaze, while Vanya reassures him that there will be no chance of a recurrence. Alfred reminds him not to let his guard down and asks how the preparation is going for a specific herb. Phonic's expression hardens into a stern gaze upon hearing about the veil herb that can cure deadly diseases. Navier reassures Alfred that they will have the herb ready by the deadline without fair, one plant at a time. Alfred asks if there is a way to have another as backup, but it is impossible. Navier explains that the herb demands a tremendous amount of nutrients and growing 2 plants at once is impossible. Phonic notices that Alfred is dealing with someone influential enough to make him nervous. Alfred mentions that the entire clan's reputation is on the line if they fail. Navier acknowledges the importance of his job and knows that failure is not an option. Alfred then calls up Phonic next. The elite swordsman becomes nervous after Alfred mentions that the Geo-Dragon was not vanquished after all. All eyes are focused on Phonic. He reports that when they discovered the monster, it was already taken down. Alfred pauses for a moment to read the report. He clarifies if the weapons that were really used to defeat the monster were a mere twig in a mighty tree. Phonic confirms based on the monster's wounds. Alfred pauses again, asking him again if he is certain about his report. Phonic acknowledges that defeating the monster with the weapons used seems impossible. The room is filled with silence, while Alfred is still in disbelief. His expression hardens with a stern gaze while asking Phonic if he is certain that there is no discrepancy with the report. The elite swordsman confirms with conviction. Uldred listens to the explanation that hardening the tree branches with enchantment can make it possible. Alfred calls Carmilla, who immediately stands up while shivering in fear. She explains that it is indeed possible in theory, once someone has mastered the art of enchantment. The room is filled with silence as Alfred thinks about the situation. He suddenly expresses his desire to find the one responsible for the monster's defeat, rendering the elite speechless. Alfred admits that their clan's strength is unmatched if such a warrior exists within the city. Alfred orders Phonic to gather intel on the master of enchantment. Alfred is even ready to offer the mysterious warrior a seat among the elites, posing a threat to Phonic. The seat among the 8 stars is a mark of the Black Dragon Fang's elite members. Phonic understands that someone will be replaced if Alfred grants a seat to the mysterious warrior. In the presence of the 8 stars, his judgment remains unyielding and firm. Phonic understands Alfred's orders despite the threat it poses to his own seat. He acknowledges his task, while suddenly feeling doubtful of his worthiness to be sitting amongst the elites like Carmilla. Meanwhile at the guild, the clerk is excited to welcome Elvis, leaving him overwhelmed by her reaction. He returns to the guild to sell some herbs. The clerk can't help but feel impressed again by his divine touch, while Elvis notices how excited she is. Suddenly, the clerk pauses for a moment until she calls Elvis. She explains that the past month has been a challenge for her as she evaluated countless withered herbs over and over again. She expresses the agony that the desk felt during his leave. Elvis notes that she must have been so busy. Suddenly, he comes to a realization about the implication of him slacking off at home. The clerk passionately reveals to Elvis that he is already the talk of the town who can sway the herb market with his pinky, leaving him shocked. He questions her to make sure he heard her right. She reiterates what the people are calling him, causing him disbelief. He insists that he has no such power, but the clerk insists that he is making an impact towards the herb market. She is serious that he is making waves, rendering him speechless. He had no idea that things had gotten so serious, which involved the Black Dragon's fang. The clerk expresses her gratitude for him for providing accessible herbs to the market, unlike the clan's pricey auction. He is surprised to learn that more adventurers are delaying their healing due to sky-high treatment costs. She also adds that their success rate for quests is taking a nosedive. She lights up as she thanks him again for helping the guild, rendering him speechless. The clerk encourages him to continue supplying the guild with his high-quality herbs. Elvis is overwhelmed and is unable to respond. Meanwhile, Elvis looks tired after the meeting with the clerk. Lisa is surprised after learning what happened, realizing how the guild is counting on her brother. He admits the pressure that he is feeling. While she sips her drink, she asks Elvis if he is going to keep gathering herbs moving forward. He responds positively since it looks like it is helping people. She suddenly feels emotional as she puts down her drink. Elvis notices her strange reaction until Lisa turns to him and asks her brother to look for a particular herb for her. He is surprised about her request, while she mentions that it is a rare herb. She looks emotional as she tells her brother about her request. Shock fills his face after seeing her reaction. He looks worried about her, but she just turns away and apologizes. The atmosphere becomes tense as he asks her what kind of herb she wants him to look for. She pauses, then reveals that it is the Grand Vale herb, leaving him shocked. He recognizes what the herb is used for, which causes him to worry about his sister. He asks her if she is sick, but she responds that she is not. He feels relieved and asks her not to worry him like she did. She is surprised that he knows of the Grand Vale plant, although he responds that it is easy to learn about herbs only if one tries. Lisa reveals that she wants to help a childhood friend to cure a rare disease. She shares that he has met her a few times and her name is Mika. He tries to recall her friend, until he remembers her, who visited their house often. Elvis finally realizes why he has not seen her recently. Lisa reveals that her disease is relentlessly sapping away her life without mercy. Meanwhile, other treatments can only prolong her life. She reveals that she is helping Mika save up so diligently to buy the Grand Vale herb. He asks her why she can't buy it after getting so close. She reveals that the clan has completely monopolized the herb, leaving him shocked, knowing that the herb is already expensive to begin with. His shock intensifies after learning that the price soared beyond reach. He suddenly remembers what the clerk said about the clan influencing the market. Lisa remains hopeful that Mika's parents are still trying hard enough to save up some money to purchase the herb. However, Mika has already given up, and it is painful for her to see. She understands the rarity of the herb, and it is understandable if they can't find it. However, it would be a miracle if they actually did. Lisa tries to wipe her tears. Elvis is taken aback by how strong his sister is, making him decide to search for the elusive Grand Verdant herb, prompting Lisa's surprise. He promises that he will give it his all to find the rare herb. Her eyes widened in shock, putting no pressure on her brother. He asks her to trust his ability to deliver. Lisa carries a gentle smile as she relies on his once hopeless brother to find a rare herb in the vast forest. He believes that there must be at least one rare herb in the vast forest since he hasn't ventured deep yet. Although he admits that finding the rare herb in the vast forest is an impossible task. However, he will do anything in his power if finding it will make her sister happy. He is determined and makes sure to get his hands on the rare herb. In the vast forest that is lush and boundless, the Black Dragon's Fang's exclusive domain lies, hiding a sanctuary deep within its heart. Beneath Alfred's own estate, Navier comes down with his usual ominous aura. He proceeds to visit a testing ground for experiments that is hidden from the people. A giant test subject in the form of a beast displays its intimidating form, while Navier looks at it with amusement and pride, which he calls his handcrafted doping kobold. He is astonished to see the kobold defeating an ogre. Turns out that he used a potion to boost the kobold's combat prowess at the expense of its consciousness. He looks proud of his creation that he can now turn weak monsters into formidable ones, although they are just mere pawns meant to be discarded at the end of the day. The kobold dies in an instant, prompting Vanir to lose interest. He is determined to improve his potion so that it can be used to humans, which will advance his ranks among the 8 stars. Suddenly, his subordinate, named Laios, calls him frantically. He learns that top-notch herbs have hit the market again, prompting him to react in shock. Laios catches his breath as he reiterates the news to Vanir. The elite star expresses his frustration after promising Uldred that it will not happen again. Vanir tells him to shut the door and asks if he is certain that he was not being followed, to which Laios confirms. He presents a high-quality herb to his boss, prompting him to react shocked. Vanir feels threatened that the herb's quality surpasses theirs and asks Laios where he got it. He responds that it was from the vast forest. However, Vanir insists that no other land in the Great Forest should possess such abundant nourishment, which Laios agrees with. The two express their frustration and confusion, knowing that their territory should only keep the quality herbs and monopolizes the herbal market. This caused the vast forest to be covered in miasma, which prompted the emergence of a geo-dragon. Navir's frustration intensifies, noting that such a miraculous herb shouldn't even exist. He is immensely baffled about what is going on. Laios reports that their analysis shows the traces of 2 different herbs. He explains that the herb was infused with nutrients before harvesting and coated with a magic to keep the nutrients. Vanir is in disbelief, realizing that useless grass elevated their quality using magic. He grins menacingly while acknowledging how exquisite the method that was used. He laughs like a madman after realizing that there is someone who stands leagues ahead of him. Laios is perplexed by what his boss said and clarifies, to which he confirms. Vanir describes how utterly magnificent the power is, which diminishes all the research he has done. Despite his frustrations, Vanir can't help but offer unabashed praise to the wielder of the magic. However, he still feels threatened that he will lose his seat among the 8 stars. Vanir calls Laios, giving him an ominous order, to which he immediately obeys. Meanwhile, Elvis returns to the guild, giving another batch of quality herbs. The clerk thanks him for helping the market price of herbs become more fair. She rushes to prepare his reward, but he pauses her for a question. Shock fills her face when he asks her about the Grand Veil herb. She asks him if he found it, but responds that he did not. He explains that he is on the hunt for it, which calms her down. He proceeds to ask if she has any intel on it. She asks him if he has never seen it ever, to which he confirms. She explains that the herb is extremely rare, highlighting its uniqueness, which discourages Elvis. However, she is hopeful that Elvis will have a better chance at finding it, given his ability to gather such high-quality herbs. She carries an encouraging smile, noting how impressive his abilities are. Suddenly, she thinks of a quest just for him, catching Elvis's attention. She gleefully mentions that the hands of fate have delivered a mission just for him, making him perplexed. His nervousness displays while the clerk settles his payment for the herbs he sold the guild. She then proceeds to explain the social experiment she has for him. She adds that he, who is dubbed as someone who has the hands of God, has been specifically selected for the quest. His confusion displays while she explains that he has become a legendary tale. Not many know that it is him and that his nickname has taken on a life of its own. The clerk reveals that special jobs mean extra fees and that his efforts are being recognized by the guild. However, Elvis does not think that he has done anything worth recognizing, explaining that he was just casually gathering herbs. He looks suspicious about the recognition and proceeds to ask what the job is about. The clerk explains that the job needs him to investigate the vegetation of the vast forest since he is knowledgeable in the field. He takes a look at the report to know more, learning that she is also asking him to be a guide and a guard for someone named Glance. She responds with his age, but that is not what he meant to ask. The clerk suddenly acts strange and can't provide more information. He asks her if they did a background check on the client, to which she responds that they normally do it. The clerk just apologizes to him for troubling him. He reveals that the client had a recommendation from a powerful individual, which makes them unable to refuse. He asks her about the backer's information, but the clerk responds that it is classified information. Elvis appears to look pensive while the clerk tells him that he is free to decline the request.